Bonjour, this is Jasmine. Thank you so much for stopping to smell the roses on Rue Madame. For those of you who are new to the neighborhood, I am a writer, a storyteller, and a community builder. I write about culture, politics, parenthood, and my life here in France. So head over to patreon.com and join the Rue Madame neighborhood where you get creative writing about my life here in France, about my reaction to current events, and podcasts and full videos. So thank you so much for your support and for helping me fulfill this passion project. This video is about defunding the police. I invited one of my Facebook friends who is an avid supporter of this movement, and he's educated on the topic, and he wants you to be educated too, to be more aware of what changes we need and what changes are proposed. So help me welcome DJ, who is a real estate agent by day, but he goes out of his way to bring this issue to his social media, and he takes the time to explain to his friends and associates what this is about. So I was very excited to invite him to Rue Madame so he can explain it in depth. So thank you so much for tuning in, and hopefully this is informative. I see a lot of your posts online about defund the police and a lot of political content and everything. What makes you so interested in this topic specifically?
Okay, well, first of all, thanks for having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate you checking my page out and seeing those things and actually looking at them and me not just talking into a silo.
Right.
It's important to me because Black people are important to me, and the plight of Black people is important to me. And so when you talk about policing, mass incarceration, we are most disproportionately impacted by these institutions. So naturally, they're going to be important things to me. Plus, I mean, even in my own personal life, I've just seen so many people impacted by, again, these institutions. So it makes it pretty important for me to know about them and if necessary, help to pull those institutions down and make them accountable, if anything.
Were you a part of the Abolish the Police campaign before the Defund the Police? Because before Defund the Police, I heard Abolish the Police.
Yep, yep.
Is
So
there like a difference?
yeah, there is, and I think that's important. That's a great question. I think that's important to kind of highlight the difference between those two camps. So you have the abolish the police or disband the police. So you hear there's different language, and I wish there was kind of a clearer language that we use, because I think when people hear defund the police, it can create this, natural rejection automatically. Like, listen, I don't, that creates lawlessness. So I do think there's a stark difference. There's the disband or abolish the police crew, which says, look, we want to go more community-based programming where it's, the community deals with crime, and we have, it's more based in community prevention. Then you have the defund the police, which says, look, we just want to reallocate resources. We want to, instead of it being, police, local police departments having military tanks and things like that, we want to take some of those funds and put them towards homelessness and job programs and youth programs. And for me personally, I probably fall somewhere in the middle, if I'm honest.
Okay.
I'm not, a completely abolished guy, but I'm also, I do believe that there needs to be some reallocation. I live in New York City, and around, I think last year, $6 billion was put towards
Oh
the
yeah.
NYPD. I mean, 700 million was paid in overtime. That is, I mean, those are astronomical numbers. If you look at most municipality budgets, most of it is going towards police and policing. And where are most of those police? In Black and brown neighborhoods, over policing us. which is
Right.
going to lead to more crime, which leads to more of us in mass incarceration. It's a whole system. So when we talk about abolishing or disbanding or defunding the police, that is just a symptom of a bigger problem, which is America and how they've treated Black and brown people. So this is, if you're new to the, we say for people who are just joining the fight for Black people, buckle up. This is just this is just step one of an entire. We still got to deal with healthcare and
Right. Exactly.
housing, and so. But this is a start, and I'm very happy and excited to see where this is going.
DJ, what's your day job? I mean, are you into politics?
So I would consider myself a lay person in politics. I'm a real estate agent by trade, so I'm in the office now. It's a Saturday, so I'm in the office, and I've done that. I work real estate in Manhattan, so luxury
Okay.
real estate. So I am part of gentrification in a strange way. And it's something that I do wrestle with, if I'm honest, because we come into areas where, we're gentrifying, honestly.
Right.
So.
As far as defunding the police, I see a lot of your friends or associates have questions or counter arguments.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to those people that say, that's not going to work, we just need to reform? Reforming as far as versus defunding, what do you think about the two?
Okay, thank you. So detractors will always say things like, listen, if we defund the police departments are already don't have a lot of money. They're already struggling. They're already on tight budgets, or that won't work for this reason or that reason. And what I say to them is, let's start with the baseline here. It's already broken. This is not what we have now. I think that's an important piece that we have to do as an entire culture, is to get people at large to understand this system is broken. And I think it's hard for a lot of detractors, especially white detractors, people who say, because it helps the police help uphold white supremacist power structures.
Mm-hmm.
So that in itself, we have to deal with a lot of white fragility and say, look, this is disproportionately impacting Black and brown people, specifically more Black people, and get them on board, because it's going to take effort from everywhere. And
Right.
This is not, going to be something that Black people can fight for without the help of allies. So to my detractors, I say, look, you want me to continue to live in a society where I see something is broken for me and my people? I can't do that. I can't knowingly go to bed at night. No, and my children, when I have children and the people after me, we have to fix this system. So again, we're talking about not totally on my end, for me, not everybody. Some people do want to abolish, but for me, we're talking about, look, I don't want the police fully gone, but I don't think the police should be called for a cat in a tree. I don't think that the police should be called for a traffic incident if somebody's not hurt. The police are already overburdened. This actually helps police. And that's what I need people to understand. That's what I tell my detractors. Police are overworked. They're underpaid and they're overworked. So this is not saying, look, we want to take power away, we want to create lawlessness. No, we want to make this a more equitable society for everybody, including the police. Look, the NYPD has 36,000 officers. They are the largest police department in the country. 10 officers last year killed themselves.
Oh.
10 officers. So to put that in perspective, you may say, somebody may listen to that and say, well, look, it's 36,000 people. 10 is not a whole lot. If we were to go to a college campus, let's say Michigan State. I'm from Michigan, Saginaw, Michigan, in the building. Shout out to all my Michigan people. I want to talk about that too. What's going on in Saginaw with the police? But if we were to look at Michigan State has an undergraduate class of 39,000 kids. If 10 of those kids in 1 year killed themselves, we would say, what is going on at Michigan
Exactly.
State?
Right.
Something is broken. And
Yeah.
we have to keep that same energy when it comes to these police departments. You have hundreds of millions of dollars going out for police misconduct every year. That's taxpayers' money. The
Exactly.
cops that do this misconduct, they're largely, they're immune to the financial side of that. They're kind of like, oh, they get in trouble, they lose their job. But taxpayers are paying out millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars a year in police misconduct cases. That is a problem. That is something that needs to be addressed. That is part of defunding the police.
If you were to have the current system, because I feel like defund the police is between the current system and abolish completely.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to have a choice, would you keep the current system or abolish?
Like completely abolish? So you're saying we're talking about opposite extremes. Keep what we have or completely get rid of them.
Exactly.
I cannot say that I'm okay with Black people being 3 times more likely to be killed by officers than white people. So I would have to go with abolish. If we're talking about zero sum, like
Right, exactly.
this is, you
Because
know,
I see a lot of news coming out of Portland and the extreme cases of rogue cops or a group of officers sent by the White House, etc. I feel like that is another extreme. So if, you know, people who contract, you have that extreme now currently, and we never saw the opposite end of that. We never
oh,
saw
right.
a community-based, non-lethal weapon force coming out. So I think that, I guess, is like just idealistic, because a lot of people think that's just idealistic for us to depend on the community, et cetera, but I don't know. I think it's something to consider for those who.
I agree. I agree with you. I think, I mean, like you said, we've never seen that. We've never seen what, I mean, I would also, like I said, I would be lying if I said I was okay with this system and keeping that. I would also be lying if I said there's not any apprehension with completely getting rid of. That's why I say I'm in the middle somewhere, because I do think there needs to be some type of just some type of structure that and the community base could do that. So I don't know until we see a city. I think Minneapolis is the first city to kind of try it en masse.
I heard like in New Jersey or something like that,
Camden.
there was a.
Yep. They tried, and I think it had some success, but I think theirs was a little, they got rid of their police department. They disbanded it, but there was still like police there. It wasn't what we're talking about now. I mean, this thing, and they're not the first ones to like try it. It's been, this fight has literally been going on for centuries. And W.E.B. Du Bois is the Reconstruction. He talked about getting rid of police departments back then.
Wow.
Because they were rooted in racist power structures. So this fight of disband, defund, abolish is like something that's been going on. But with the recent death of George Floyd, now we're at a place where in our generation has kind of picked up the mantle and made it commonplace to talk about this and to have these conversations. So, yeah.
Do you have any police officers, friends, or people in law enforcement that you've discussed this, in depth?
Yeah, actually. So, my uncle actually, right before George Floyd happened, he retired after 25 years in the Lansing Police Department. So
wow,
Lansing, capital of Michigan. And so, he was there, and so me and him had conversations about it. And it's interesting because I think, especially for Black officers, there's an internal struggle, and there is a battle between your Black your blackness and racist power structures, and kind of how do you marry those two, or how do you reconcile that?
Exactly.
And so I see that in a lot of and even one of my buddies, when I posted the stuff about defunding the police, he reached out to me in my Facebook inbox and he said, look, like, this is how I feel about it. But he also understood where I was coming from. He said, look, I'll be the first one to tell you, there are some things that are rotten in a police department. And so, for me, my message to him was, and I got this, I think, from what's this, Dr. Rashawn Ray. He's a sociologist and he follows this. These are the real smart guys on it. He's one of the real smart guys on this stuff. And he said, look, we talk about bad apples all the time, and I'm paraphrasing. He says, we talk about bad apples, but bad apples come from rotten trees.
Wow.
And for me, that was very poignant. I said that, and that was my message to my friend who came in my inbox, like, look, yeah, you saying there are bad apples, bro. Like, I get that, but something is structurally wrong. Something is wrong in the tree where the apples are coming from, and that's what we need to address.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying, I had to talk to another one of my friends who I used to go to church with these people, and I love them dearly. They're great people. And she posted a thing that said, black people, or not, excuse me, not black people, police need to be paid more, not less. Don't defund the police. It was something to that. And that's when I realized, like, look, this word defund scares people because it makes them think that we're trying to take money or power, and it's like, no, we're actually trying to make your husband's life and your son's life safer and easier. Why should your son be the only one responding to a mental health situation when he has not been trained for that?
Exactly.
Why shouldn't he have a mental health professional with him so that they can de-escalate the situation? I mean, and de-escalate is a whole nother thing, because we have to talk about what is the purpose of the police. Are you there to de-escalate, or are you there for just crime and punishment?
That's a good question.
That's the question. What do we want? Are we just here to punish people? Are we here to say, look, we want to de-escalate this so that the situation, nobody's hurt here?
I've had several protesters come on to interview about their recent experience with the Black Lives Matter movement, etc. And each time they said, every time the police came, it escalated things. It didn't de-escalate things.
Sure.
As far as peaceful protests, it didn't stay peaceful because the cops showed up to intimidate and to show their guns and to, provoke. So it really does make you wonder what their purpose is.
And I think, so with that said, we have to talk about when they show up, what is our relationship?
Exactly. Because in one group, in the Black community, I'll speak to people I know, they never felt safe around the police. I've never felt safe around the police. Growing up, we grew up knowing that they would bring more harm than good. So when people ask the question, what is the purpose of the police? For me and my family, it's kind of a rhetorical question. Like, we know that they are here to arrest us and and harm us. But I'd like to make a point that I've had a lot of good experiences with the police also. So there hasn't all been bad, thankfully. But for the most part, it has been fear, mostly just fear of what is going on in their head, because you can be as innocent as you want, but in a person's mind, it's another story.
And that's about racial, especially when it comes to Black people. I mean, there was a study that showed that officers receive, I think, what was it, like 100+ hours of training when it comes to firearms and self-defense. But when it comes to de-escalation and being involved in the community, that training is about 11 hours. So we're talking about 100 times more training in self-defense and fire, or 10 times more training in firearms and in self-defense than escalation. So you're basically training a soldier who has racial biases against the community that he does not live in, and it's supposed to be protecting. That's a broken system.
Exactly. As far as the Black Lives Matter movement and the social unrest and everything like that, do you think this movement of defunding the police is realistic? Is it something that you can like see in our lifetime happening?
I do. I think if not fully, again, this idea exists on a spectrum, right? So while we may not see full, abolishment, which I'm okay with, there will be departments that'll move closer towards the middle. So if defunding is on this side and abolishment is on this side, there will be some meeting there, or the current system is on this side. There will be some meeting in the middle or closer to the left, because the current system is broken, and I think this generation is loud enough and they're impacting change enough, and honestly, we just won't put up with the status quo. So I do think there will be some change. I don't know. I mean, LA has already started. Even in, I think Michigan is another state that is talking about, pulling some money out of police departments and putting it towards other things. So I do think in our lifetime, there will be a lot of change, which I'm excited about. And again, it may not be perfect. I'm not saying this is gonna 1,000% work totally. It may, but I do know the system now is broken, so we do have to do something.
As far as the next presidential election, do you have hope in that next wave of new people coming to the White House, et cetera, or are you pessimistic about future change?
Well, I mean, so if we're talking about the figureheads, if we're talking about the top of Trump and Biden, and I'm not a huge fan of Joe Biden. I abhor Donald Trump. And then if we start talking about, Congress and local leaders, I do think people are more politically aware in this generation overall.
I think so too.
Yeah. And I think that matters a lot. So I am optimistic of the future because people are just more engaged on a local level all the way up to the top. So I think with more engagement, it creates more accountability.
Okay. As far as people that say, I don't like either candidate, I'm not going to vote. And the defund the police, I think it's just wishful thinking. I'm not for that. What do you say to people that are just kind of like complacent or hopeless for this whole movement and everything?
Well, I would tell them I think it's still important to vote because I truly believe if Donald Trump is reelected, we won't recognize the country in another 4 years.
I don't recognize the United States. But...
Right. I mean, it's already to the point, within his first 4 years. So if we have him for another 4 years as leading the country, I don't even, I'm scared to even think about what that looks like. So on the other hand, we have Joe Biden. Joe Biden has his own history of,
his record speaks for itself.
His record is spotty at best. And so, but I do think it's still important to vote. Even if we go back to our ancestors fighting for our right to vote. And even if you're, whether you're a Black person or if you're whoever, it's still important to vote because you need to exercise that freedom. And I do think that having Joe Biden in the office is different from having Donald Trump because it signals just the signal of, look, we won't stand for bigotry. We won't stand for, first of all, I don't hope Donald Trump loses. I hope he gets destroyed. And America sends and when I mean politically, so that it sends the signal that, look, we won't stand for what you're doing. We won't stand for this as America. This is not America as a whole. And, you know,
I'll be devil's advocate and say, some people will argue if it wasn't for this election in these last 3 years, we wouldn't have this uprising. We wouldn't have this revolution. It would be status quo, business as usual, and we would still have these instances of police brutality, et cetera, et cetera. We'll have another person killed. It'll be an uproar, but then it'll go back down because we have a Democrat in the office. So, you know, it's all good. And since this maniac is in office currently, it has caused people who would normally turn a blind eye has awakened more quickly because of this madness that we see on a daily basis.
I actually agree with you. I tell my friends all the time, I'm like, look, Donald Trump was actually kind of a gift because he pulled back the veil
for white America.
For white America. It's like, oh, y'all just complain. Kind of like what Rodney King did. The Rodney King beating was, you know, when they, you know, oh, black people would talk about police brutality, and finally you see it on right in front of your face, like, boom, here it is. Donald Trump was another example of that. And even then you look at the recent polls and it shows that I think it was like 49% of white people still voting for Donald Trump. Listen, at this point, you know, I'm happy that it just showed that folks weren't crazy. This country is racist. It's built on racist power structures, and we need to address these things. And without a Donald Trump, like you said, it would always been like, oh, y'all just complaining. Look at Oprah, and look at these
Barack Obama. Look at
Barack Obama. Look at it. And it's like, bam, no. Just because one or two black people are successful does not mean that this country is not built and is not still profiting and is not existing on racist power structures. Because a couple people are successful, even myself, people look at me and be like, oh, well, look at you, DJ, you
exactly
good, you know, like you can live a pretty decent life. I'm like, yeah, but like I'm one of whatever, and the things that I had to do, and the fact that black people always have to run faster and jump higher and, you know, do all these things to get to the same level is, it's
exactly. Yeah. I have one more question before I let you go, DJ. Thank you so much so far. Thank you. I've read one of your comments. You were saying that you don't want to fire any policemen. You don't want to lay off any of policemen as far as defunding. But I think the opposite. I think we do need to lay off police officers. I think we do need to fire them. And I don't think training is the solution. I think training would have been appropriate when Sandra Bland died or when, you know, Trayvon Martin. Training could have happened 10 years ago because we've had uproars. Black Lives Matter started a while ago, and where training would have been, okay, that can be a solution. But in 2020, training and keeping people on the payroll for just ridiculous, reckless behavior, I don't think that's a good solution either. I think we do need to take people and retire them.
Well, I think, so I'm hesitant to throw the entire baby out because, and the reason is this, a lot of police officers are following orders. That's part of getting rid of the militarization of the police. So you look at the video of George Floyd, right? And you see Derek Chauvin, his knee is on the neck of George Floyd. There's three other officers down, or maybe two, I think. It's either two or three. From the other side of the street, you see the video. They're kneeling on him on his body. There's another Asian officer standing up, being complicit in a murder. And you look at that and you say, how could like seemingly normal people allow that to happen? Well, there's a militarization in the police that says, look, the sergeant is in charge, I follow orders. Right. No, we need to get rid of that type of culture in the police that says, look, if there is a obvious and exploitative incident happening, it needs to be corrected right then by a fellow officer whoever, and the chain of command cannot be followed in exploitative behavior. And so I think that's part of the issue, that we need to talk about the chain, the hierarchy, and how, and that culture, the blue wall of silence. The right now in my hometown of Saginaw, Michigan, there was an officer fired a couple weeks ago, which I applaud the Saginaw Police Department for doing, because it happened and right away, boom, that's what we need. Swift, accountable action. They did it right away. You know what happened after that though? The officers caught the blue flu. So now you have officers calling in for their shift in mass. So there are no officers on the street.
Okay, thank you for saying that. So they need to be fired. That's what you're telling me.
So,
There's no training. There's no training. They need to go. Is that what you're telling me?
So yes, and so in that situation, there needs to be new I agree. In that situation, we can't have that gang culture in
yes, it's a
that's supposed to be protected.
Mafia type of situation.
It is a mafia type situation. I totally agree with that. But that is not in all. There are literally, it's hard because now I'm gonna sound like them when I say
yes, yes, you are.
But Jasmine, there are some good officers that really.
I agree. They are some good officers. But for example, when you take the case in Buffalo where there was an old man that was pushed on the ground, he was knocked, I don't know if he was unconscious or not, and they just left him there.
Right.
And then, I don't know, a couple weeks later, maybe a couple days, you had the whole squad that resigned from this.
Right. The gang culture so
as far as training and not letting people go, and I don't think you can train people to have respect for another person's humanity. So as far as this, let's give them another chance and maybe we can, I'm not sympathetic to it.
Yeah, but I think so. Like I don't think there were a lot of officers who didn't resign though, and I think if you were one of those officers that resigned, we should just let you go. I think what's important too is that, and it's part of defunding the police. Taxpayers have to stop footing the bill for this misconduct. You got to start, well, not you, but we have to, as a society, start to saying, look. If you do something and we got to pay out a misconduct case, we pulling that out of your pension. And I guarantee you, a lot of these misconduct cases where they feel like they can do whatever and they can join together and they can act like a gang, they're going to be like, you pushed him down. I didn't push him down. That's not coming out of my pension. I got a family to feed. And you take away that gang culture because you know what? At the end of the day, people want to take care of themselves and their family. Self-preservation, first rule of nature. So people, you do that, and I think that'll help quell a lot of that, gang kind of, we move as a unit, one.
Right.
Yeah, what is it? Blue wall of silence culture? Because it's like, I'm not getting money taken out of my pocket for what you got going on. So I think that's part of it. I think that's a solution that could help that.
Hopefully,
I guess we'll.
I think you're very optimistic. I like that. We need optimism because there's nothing over here optimistic. But do you have anything else you'd like to share?
To this, huh?
Do you like anything you'd like to share that, like the misconceptions, anything else that will probably sway people to defund the police? So
I appreciate you having me. I don't have anything necessarily that I don't have a final parting words, but I will say this. Follow the really smart, whoever watches this, follow the people who are really doing the work on this. I'm a real estate dude, and so I'm a lay person, but the people who are really doing the work, Dr. Rashawn Ray, you can follow him on Twitter. Dr. Alex Vitale, he wrote a book, The End of Policing. Who else you got? The MPD 150, their organization that they're doing the work on this whole thing. So I think if I had I guess I do have parting words. Get educated on this. That way you can
Yes.
have the words and the language to talk about this, because your uncles and your aunts and your grandfathers and your parents, that defunding thing sounds crazy to them, because they're like, there's gonna be no police. Are you crazy? And so, and it's hard to even for them to imagine a world where there is, no police and all, or whatever. So I think I would say get educated so you can have these conversations, and you're actually helping people because you're helping them to understand. So that's all I have, and I hope this was beneficial.
Yes, it has
Just
been beneficial. I mean, I guess I can tell other people that just get educated, because I feel like you did a lot of homework on it, which I appreciate, and that's why I wanted you on. And keep up the good work and spreading the word, because your post is beneficial, I think, for people that are kind of scared of it.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me. Continue doing what you're doing, creating a platform for us to talk
Yes.
about these issues. It's very important, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, DJ. I'll talk to you again soon, hopefully.
All right, sounds good. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good one.
Bye.